Good options in Street Fighter: playing neutral, reacting to your opponent, conditioning them with throws. They're often ambiguous. The delay resolution, they require sustained attention. Under threat, the brain treats these as liabilities. Autopilot chooses the action that ends the question, not the one that wins the exchange. This is why players feel strange relief when they commit to a bad option. The moment of hesitation ends. The brain gets what it wanted, certainty, the wake up ultra effect. You know what I mean? How many times has a wake up ultra lifted and you're like, add the better play, add the best. And then when it doesn't work out, you're like, I am the dumbest clown to ever walk the face of the earth. Hot dog, hot diggity dog. And we've all been in that place before. We've all been that clown before. What's up, party people, and welcome back to our ranked adventures with a side of Yap. And today's topic, today's lesson is going to be on autopiloting. I'm sure we've all autopiloted before. Your brain feels like it's betraying you, like it's under pressure, so it just kind of gives up. Not flow state, I'm talking autopilot, like you do something you know you shouldn't have done, but you do it anyways because you've been playing for however long, and you're going against the grain essentially at that point of improvement and just kind of flunking around. So autopilot is a defense mechanism. Autopilot isn't usually framed as a failure of discipline. It's mostly you zoned out. It's like you just, you've been playing so long you stop thinking about it, and now bad habits, are developing because you're not playing consciously. The implied fix is, to focus harder, to care more, be better, but you can't. The framing is comforting because it makes autopilot a choice, but autopilot isn't a choice. It happens when the brain decides that conscious control is no longer safe, efficient, or necessary. It isn't laziness, but it's more like just your brain protecting you from being stupid. You know what I mean? It's trying to just be like, yo, you obviously don't care about this right now. Let's go do something else. And in Street Fighter, it shows up, when players believe they need to be at their best often, but you over practice to a point. So now you need to take a break. The brain does not enter autopilot because nothing is happening. It enters autopilot because too much is happening. Cognitive overload, uncertainty, mental stack, evaluation, perceived stakes. These all contribute to the same signal. And this situation can be expensive to your psyche as well. You could be like, this is where gambling addicts come into, and they don't listen to this signal and they can't step away. You know what I mean? The signal crosses a threshold. The brain relocates control. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, inhibition, and decision making, it starts slowing down, and metabolically it starts costing your body. Under stress, it is the first system to be deprioritized, so control is handed off faster. Older neural circuits designed for speed and certainty just take over. These systems are efficient, but they're also blunt. That's why, it's a slippery slope. You make one mistake and you stop caring, and you just make a bunch and you can't stop. And you're like, what is going on? I need to take a break from this video game. So autopilot is not absence of decision making. It is more like decision making without deliberation. You know what I mean? Deliberation of the whatever the context that you're in at the time. So one of the most misunderstanding aspects of autopilot is why it so reliably chooses bad options. Players, say, I know that's wrong. Why do I keep doing it? I do it all the time myself. And it's because under stress, the brain optimizes for familiarity, not correctedness. Familiar action reduce uncertainty. They resolve ambiguity quickly. Even when the outcome is negative, it is predictable. Predictability is calming. Uncertainty is not. Good options in Street Fighter: playing neutral, reacting to your opponent, conditioning them with throws. They're often ambiguous. The delay resolution, they require sustained attention. Under threat, the brain treats these as liabilities. Autopilot chooses the action that ends the question, not the one that wins the exchange. This is why players feel strange relief when they commit to a bad option. The moment of hesitation ends. The brain gets what it wanted, certainty, the wake up ultra effect. You know what I mean? How many times has a wake up ultra lifted and you're like, add the better play, add the best. And then when it doesn't work out, you're like, I am The dumbest clown to ever walk the face of the earth. Hot dog, hot dog, hot diggity dog. And we've all been in that place before. We've all been that clown before. Some of us clown more than others. But essentially, so under normal conditions, skilled players have access to a wide repertoire of responses in whatever situation. Under stress, that repertoire shrinks. This is not metaphorical, it is observable. Stress narrows attention. Narrowed attention narrows your behavior. Psychologically, this is called regression. Under pressure, behavior reverts to earlier learned patterns, responses encoded when the skill was very first acquired, the very first muscle memory. These patterns are robust, fast, and inflexible because they're refined in your muscles. Refined strategies live higher up the cognitive stack. They require working memory, inhibition, and context sensitivity. Autopilot just bypasses all that and you just go in. So when you forget how to play, what is actually happening is that newest layers are temporarily inaccessible. You're over practicing. You did not lose the skill, you lost access to it. One of the most distressing aspects of autopiloting is the feeling of watching yourself act against your own plans. You told yourself not to do something, you meant it, and yet you keep doing it over and over again, baby. This creates a narrative of self-sabotage. In reality, the intention and execution are handled by different systems. When execution is offloaded, tension becomes advisory rather than authoritative. You're still thinking, but you're no longer in charge. This is why self-talk fails under autopilot. The system in control isn't listening. The brain, it's not ignoring you, it's resigned you, essentially. Autopilot is self-reinforcing. Once engaged, it reduces cognitive load, which the brain interprets as relief. Relief reinforces the behavior. Even when outcomes are bad, the immediate reduction in uncertainty is rewarding to the brain. The brain prioritizes short-term regulation over long-term optimization. This is why autopilot tends to persist across matches, maybe even weeks. Sometimes you're doing the same thing. The player is not choosing it repeatedly. The system is defaulting to it. Breaking autopilot requires more than just awareness that it's going on. It requires changing the conditions that are triggering it. So evaluation is autopilot's favorite field. Autopilot thrives in environments where performance is constantly evaluated. Ranked matches, ranked systems, viable metrics like the point system, comparing yourself to other players. The self-surveillance, you surveillancing yourself like this is all perceived as a threat to your brain. When every action feels like evidence, the brain goes on defense. Defense is conservative. It minimizes variance. It avoids taking any risks, and it wants what's familiar to it. It wants what, it knows originally, and it doesn't have to worry anymore. Ironically, this makes performance much worse, which increases that pressure and deepens the autopilot. It makes your brain even worry more, and then you're in this loop of self-devised hell, essentially, and you never get better, and you wonder why you can't get better and why you aren't getting better and why people say practice the right stuff. This is the kind of stuff that leads to it. You need to become aware of this. Advice and I'm talking to myself, I'm wagging a finger in my own face there just so anyone knows. I'm like, you bastard, you remember 1964 when you weren't born yet? Anyways, advice like stay present or don't autopilot misunderstands the mechanisms. Autopilot is not a lapse of attention. It is an attentional strategy. The brain is relocating resources to protect itself from overload, as we discussed. So asking it to just not do that and do the opposite of that is like, when the SpongeBobs are running around on fire and you can be just like, yo, SpongeBob, calm down. I don't think those SpongeBobs are going to calm down. I think they're going to keep screaming. You know what I'm saying? It's not very helpful. So willpower is not the missing ingredient in this. Safety is what your brain needs. When perceived threat decreases, the prefrontal cortex comes back online. Options reappear. Behavior becomes flexible again. Autopilot recedes not because you fought it, but because it was no longer needed. Your brain was no longer under threat. Now you're playing the video game and you're having fun. The SpongeBobs aren't on fire, So it's more important to say this clearly. Autopilot is not a flaw. It is an adaptive response optimized for survival. It's not optimized for competition. In real danger, you want fast, familiar actions. You want minimal deliberation. You want absolute certainty. You don't want to walk back on anything. Street Fighter is not real danger, but the brain does not know that. It responds to symbols, stakes, and narratives as if they're real and they matter. When players treat matches as judgments of their self, your autopilot becomes rational. The problem is not the mechanism, the problem is the meaning attached to the environment. So, autopilot feels like losing control because control is conditional. It is granted when the brain believes the situation is manageable. If you want access to better decisions, you do not start by demanding them from yourself. You start by removing the signals that made them inaccessible. You reduce evaluation. You lower perceived text. You create room for error. Just play. Just go have fun. Don't worry about anything. Autopilot disengages when the brain no longer feels that it needs to protect you from the situation you're in. Street Fighter does not require constant vigilance. It requires adaptability, and adaptability only exists when the nervous system feels safe enough to explore new options. Autopilot is not your enemy. It's a message, and once you understand what it's responding to, it stops needing to yell in your face. I am the Depressed Gamer. Need you all to be good to yourselves. Please like, comment, subscribe. You know I appreciate every single one of you who do so. The channel do be growing a smidgen at a time, and it's all thanks to you folks, you people out here all ready to party. Gotta keep on struggling, folks, and I will see you in the next one.